And here we are, live again from Winchester in the UK.
And I'm alive this week and I shall be talking, Craig.
Good. And we're going to be talking all about remote viewing. So we'll be snooping around your house with our paranormal senses and seeing what's happening in your homes. We're going to talk about remote viewing. And if you've got any questions, any thoughts, I'm going to put any comments afterwards about remote viewing. Don't forget, put them in the comments below, put them in the live chat, and we can take your questions as well in this live show.
And we'll say a few hellos, Craig, if we may.
Let's say a few hellos.
CB made it.
Well done, CB.
Agility Bits, hello from Cornwall. Hello, Agility Bits.
Good to see you again, Pat.
J.A. Hill, I'm here and we're here too. I'm glad it's on Saturday now instead of Fridays. Yes.
Yeah, it's easier. Breaks up our weekend a bit though.
Yeah.
Oak Tree Man, hello everybody.
Hello, Oak Tree Man. Nana, hi everybody from my home to yours and to you.
Nice to see you again. Lots of familiar faces again. Hi Ireland, nice to see you. Hello Jane and Craig and Domenico. Of course, Domenico's in the background doing all the production for us.
And Nian, hello from Brittany.
Good to see you. Cheryl Callahan, Craig and Jane Hamilton Parker, psychic mediums listening from Massachusetts, USA. Thank you very much, Lisa. Craig. Hi. I do you too. I notice you keep coming on a lot of the other videos that go out. I see you putting very similar comments.
Right, you say the next one, Craig.
Jane will say the name. Hello from Carmel, California, from Tomaz Baginski,
Yes.
something like that.
And Fleming
Rosenwald.
Hello, Craig and Jane from
Copenhagen.
Copenhagen. We don't talk like
Nice
that.
to see you guys.
Dean, hello from where is it?
Connecticut,
Yeah,
USA.
I should put my glasses on, shouldn't I?
Tamans again is saying hello from Carmel, California.
Oh, lovely.
Jamie Baby Cardo.
Good evening, Jane, Craig, and Domenico.
Nice to see you again.
Indigo, good evening from Gosport.
Gosport. Then, if you're just joining us, we're going to be talking about remote viewing this evening. Remote viewing and the CIA and the Russians and all that
Yes,
type
I've
of
got
thing.
it all here.
Hello from Oregon, says Kathy Martin. Jane?
Thomas, is someone playing with me here? Hello from Carmel, California. Angela, lovely to see you both from Derby. Hi, Angela.
And Charles Barkowski is, oh no, Dahlia is saying hello from Oregon. Lenore, hello from Portugal.
From North Portugal, not just from Portugal, Craig.
Hello from Jan in Rye, I get New York.
Yes. John, hi Craig and Jane, another great show coming up. I have a chuckle at countdown to start of the show as it sounds like my microwave.
Really? Yeah. Actually, we ought to one week we'll have to see if we can do these as fast as we possibly can, how quickly we can do them.
Right, Apple says, hello Jane, Craig and Dom. Greetings from Switzerland. Love your setup. And that's it.
Yeah. And Jules is saying hi from East Sussex. We're going to be talking about remote viewing if you're just joining, or just saying a few hellos just to let you all get online for us first before we start off. As George is saying, hello, Saturday from Miami, Florida.
Oh,
Danielle, I've heard of her.
Hello from our daughter. Well, hello,
Well,
Danielle.
Danielle. Who would have thought? Ireland?
Have you had, Ireland saying, have you had a personal experience of remote viewing that was validated? If yes, please discuss. Yes, I have.
Yeah, there's some good, we will do. And also your ideas too, you guys out there too. If you have had any interesting remote viewing experiences, we'll just talk about the whole subject.
What about the Concord Club, Craig?
We'll mention that in a moment. But we will be having, I'll give a little clip later on of our theatre show coming up. We'll do part way through the show. So welcome everybody. Dom in the background, as it says, is doing all the work, making all the cameras work, taking your questions and putting them up on the screen for us so we don't have to worry about that side of things. And we're going to be talking tonight about remote viewing. You've got a few notes as well, I see tonight, Jane. Good.
Yeah. People might say, what's remote viewing? the paranormal ability to perceive a remote or hidden target without the support of the senses, Craig.
Yeah, so that's Ryan's version
Yes.
of it.
Well, we've got Russell Targ and Harold Pofanoff. That have you got that on your notes? That was very much into remote viewing, which is, of course, clairvoyance. And in 1975, it was sponsored by the US government, military, and Russians also use remote viewers.
Yeah, you give them the whole lot all at once. Yeah, right, guys. Yes, that's right. This remote viewing is like being able to see something without the known senses. Like Jane said there, being able to sort of see something that's happening in another place. You know, sometimes you might have experienced it. Maybe you've had that experience when you've been sat and you just known what someone's doing somewhere else, or you've had a dream about somewhere else. And if you think about it, it's what we do all the time, really, isn't it, Jane? When you do, for example, a telephone reading for somebody, you're seeing them, you're seeing their home sometimes and able to describe what they're wearing when you're doing the reading. That type of thing's remote viewing as well, being able to pick up and see something
and sensing
miles away.
It's like sensing in your mind. I mean, one remote viewing that I have come to mind, what I've done, is actually remote viewed at documents from New York to Bermuda. And that's when I found that 27 million for someone. Do you remember?
Yeah, so that's a good and very prosperous example of remote viewing, because
it's subjective valuation, Craig, I call it.
yeah, validation.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's about remote viewing. I shall explain a little bit about it. So it's a kind of a form of clairvoyance in which we see things. We see things at a distance. Now, you know, you'd ask, well, what's the use of that? You know, what's the point of something like that? Well, when it got really interesting is when the Americans and the Russians were in the Cold War years, and they found out that the Russians had been doing a load of experiments and putting a load of money into the idea of viewing, using psychics to see if they could see what was going on in America.
Not only that, they also worked telepathically with dolphins. They learnt to interrogate captured enemies, not the dolphins, of course, and they could see through space and time because, as you know, dolphins have high telepathic senses.
Yeah.
So it's an experiment what parapsychologists would have done.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of things that were going on. For example, there was this book that came out about hidden psychic experiments behind the Iron Curtain. And they found out that the Russians were putting money into trying to do this spying by remote viewing. And the Americans thought, the CIA thought, well, you know, if the Russians are doing this, maybe we ought to experiment with it too. So they put a bit of money into it at Stanford University. And Stanford is quite a well-known and quite a high esteem university in America.
And did you know, Craig, in 1972 and 1995, the CIA recruited mind readers to spy on the sovereign unit in the 70s.
That's right. And they set it up in 1972 in Stanford University.
That's right.
They got their grant. It went on till about 1990. So they and the grant got changed a few times along the line. They had trouble getting funding. They were worried because this would, scientists would have been sort of pretty anti it, pretty skeptical against the whole idea. But at the same time, that they were doing the same, the CIA were putting money into things such as LSD, giving LSD to troops in the MK Ultra sort of projects, where they were sort of thinking, could we, put it in the water of the Russians? Could we spray it across the air on the troops and things? So these guys were pretty heavy-duty guys. There was a guy there called Gottlieb, I think his name. I've written it down, Gottlieb. I can never remember his name. But this guy was sort of like Mengele. He was a real bad guy that really did all these experiments on American troops. And they didn't give a damn about whether it was scientifically proven, what it meant spiritually. All they were interested in is, can we spy on the Russians? Can we use these guys to spy on the Russians?
What they're interested in is uncovering military and domestic intelligence secrets.
Yeah, indeed.
And if we go back to the Second World War, they used pigeons that used to fly over to Germany with messages and things.
Yeah, so
You
they
with
used to
me?
use all sorts of
Yeah.
tricks. We saw that. But they were brilliant the way they got some really, really top-notch psychics. There's one guy called Ingo Swan,
Yeah.
Swan with a double N.
Yeah.
And I saw some of his paintings. He was a really brilliant painter and a bit of a weird guy, actually, too, because he had he had a strange personality,
Yeah.
big ego. But he was an absolutely remarkable psychic. And one of the experiments they found with him, at Stanford, they had a big room that was sort of magnetically sealed or something like that. No sound could get in it, no energy could get in it. And he was able to make a needle move in that sealed room from outside,
Yes,
from
but
way outside.
that's also could come under the form of psychokinesis.
Of course it is, yeah. And the thing with it was that this guy was doing really powerful scientific proofs, of what was going on. Uri Geller went there as well, but they didn't use him because they were worried about he was working for Mossad at the time.
Yeah. And did you know Madame Blavatsky? She was able to remote view the inner structure of atoms.
Yeah, Madame Blavatsky did a lot of strange stuff. Also, she worked with remote viewing the pyramids and things like that, much more esoteric.
Yeah.
You'll remember Madame Blavatsky was the woman that was involved in theosophy and the early sort of mystical sort of societies that were around in the 1930s and things. So she was a pretty remarkable woman as well. So they were targeting the Soviets in Russia to see if they could see things like bunkers and nuclear submarines and where they were, because this sort of stuff really useful to know. And they were finding these guys were able to pinpoint it. There's a lot of good movies out there on the web and things about some of the experiments were done. They compare the drawings of the silos with the drawings that were done by these psychics. And there was a real fascinating stories. There's a guy called Russell Targ, which there's a good one out there about Russell Targ, a whole great video out there about him.
And Harold Pophoff.
Yeah, Popov was involved, and so was Pat Price was the interesting one, because they reckoned that Pat Price was murdered by the Russians. He died suddenly, died unexpectedly, and now we get all these business with these sarin drugs and things like rising drugs and things like that. They admitted that they killed one of the psychics. The Russians admitted that they tried this. We had it all recently just down the road in Salisbury, near us here, and they did all that. And they were using that stuff on the psychics. And the first person to be killed was a psychic.
You better watch out, Craig.
Yeah,
you better watch out.
We better watch what we're doing.
Don't drink that tea.
Yeah. So these guys were doing all sorts of things. There was all sorts of interesting other stories with it, with Patty Hearst, who was kidnapped, and they were trying to sort of find out where she was. And so it's a fascinating thing. I mean, there was being used, and the thing that was happening, the stuff at the SRI at Stanford, they were using all this information, bringing it together, and there was very strong scientific proof. And if you listen to some of the scientists that were working there now talking about it, they still moan to this day that it's all still treated as pseudoscience. And yet, there was Jimmy Carter, the president at the time, was putting big money into it. Jimmy Carter even said that he'd seen experiments being done that completely convinced him of the reality of psychic gifts. And so, this was real scientific advancement.
Well, I think they also recruited men and women to actually, as a defence thing, to actually have all these secrets and find them out.
They were looking, one of the things they were able to do, they not only could target, if they were given the latitude and longitude of a place to target, they would not only be able to describe it without knowing what was there in the first instance, but they would even be able to go to the filing cabinets and read the documents that were in the filing cabinets. They did tests on their own stuff, so they put stuff...
Craig, I do remote viewing on your wallet.
yeah, you know what's in there.
No.
But they tried it on their own silos and things like that. They told them a place to look, and they would read the actual headings in the documents of the US stuff. So they could do it with the US stuff, they could do it with the Russian stuff. And, it's like anything. If you get yourself focused, don't you? If you get yourself focused, like if I'm focusing on predictions, or we were focusing on predictions like when the Big Breakfast that time, your mind gets more and more honed into it that you start to get it all the time. That's what these guys must have been doing.
You're using your intuition, your sixth sense, and you see like a vision in your mind, and you focus, and you can give the dates, the times, and everything.
That's it. The more you get focused into these things, the more you get attuned to it. So people like Swan and Price and all the rest of them, they were getting some very, very powerful, interesting stuff, and it was kind of being seen by one of the top universities. And to this day, science still can't accept that this sort of thing is true. They're stuck in the dogma of scientific thinking, aren't they, that says, no, none of this is true, this is a load of nonsense, you know, it's all pseudoscience, we refuse to believe any of it. And yet, if you look at those files, and a lot of them actually are now being released, there's tons of stuff in there.
Say the barium effect, wouldn't they?
The what?
The barium effect.
Barnum effect,
yes.
yeah. They say it's like Barnum Circus, don't they?
Yeah,
it's all
nonsense,
something in it for everybody,
rubbish.
and we make it all fit.
Yeah.
But these guys were given exact latitudes and longitudes of where submarines were, and they were being checked out, and it was true. They were doing all sorts of stuff with, like I said, being able to read, you know, the forms and draw accurate pictures of crane structures in certain places and things, and drawing them absolutely accurately, you know. I mean, when you look at the notes of these guys, amazing stuff. But I suppose we get a bit of that on our own work, don't we, Jane?
Well, we do. I was asked once to find some money, and I found 27 million hidden in Bermuda, and I read the notes that I could remote view that was in New York in the lawyer's office. Do you remember?
Yeah, so that was done. Was that the spirit world was telling you that, though, Jane, wasn't it, really?
No, not just the spirit world. I actually saw it.
You saw the place?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I saw the box with all the documents in and everything. And
so you had a sort of a vision of where it was and what it was and where you saw it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember it happening. And you, they actually found that money, didn't they?
Mm.
I mean, I often throw that at people if they say, "Oh, if you're a psychic, why can't you win the lottery?"
But then the lottery.
But you won. You got found someone 27 million.
Yeah, but
whatever it
the
was,
lottery,
huge amount.
A form of gambling. I believe that's all worked out karmically, and it's all been worked out by a mathematician.
Yeah. That I think it is. I don't think you can change things and destiny like that. But we're going to be taking your questions shortly. So if you've got any thoughts and questions about that. But before we do that, don't forget, me and Jane are going to be doing a theatre show again coming up in, what's the date of it, Jane?
It's the 16th of November, and it starts at 7:30 at the Concord Club in Southampton. Tickets now are going fast.
So people can get them on the there's a link in the description below on this video, and here's a clip of what we did last time. She's talking about somewhere that gives me a name that sounds like Herbrook.
She's from Pembrokeshire.
Pembrokeshire, okay. That's
and her name was Jean.
She's talking about a Peter. Has something to do with fish and chips? Does that make sense?
Yeah. If I was still here, I'd clip him round the ear. Would you understand that? All right. Okay. I feel he's bringing you flowers from the spirit world, because I feel very much you sense him at times, because I'm getting out of breath as he's coming through. Would you understand that? Very breathless.
There you go, theconcordclub.com. If you want to get some tickets, go and have a look, and we hope to see you there. Particularly if you're a patron, we'll come and say hello to you afterwards.
Definitely.
So I'm going to take some questions. You want to take the first one,
Well,
Jane?
let me put my glasses on, Craig. Ireland. Do you need to have something physical to hold in your hand connected to the subject to remote view to tune into a place? Not necessary, that's more psychometry, isn't it?
Yeah, I think sometimes it can help to have some other form of connection of a vibration. That is used often, like I said before, in circles and things. But you don't really need that for remote viewing. I mean, it's a funny thing how it works, really.
Well, it's extra sensory perceptions, isn't it, from the mind, what you're seeing.
I mean, one of the reports that the guys in this, when they were working with the CIA there, said that it's as if the more people try to hide it, the more it makes a light upon that object. I thought that was quite interesting, as if, this is so secret, we got to hide it. It almost creates a vibration to help you link into it.
Yeah.
How do you think it works?
Well, I just answered that, you're using your sixth sense, you're using extra sensory perceptions and from your mind, and it's like, for me, it's like a psychic TV screen, seeing pictures flashing in front of me, and that's all I'm seeing.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting to see how you think about it, because I kind of think of it, we tap into something that's like the universal mind, a bit like the way we tap into the internet, and it's a web that connects all over the place.
Yeah.
And I think when it happens, I don't actually, with myself, because I've tried remote viewing things at my circles and things like that in the past, and we used to give latitude and longitudes and see what people could see and things like that. People would bring a latitude or longitude, and we'd have to see where it was, and we got it right. And but it's like you connect. It's as if you only need a tiny bit of information, and it can connect you to this whole network out there.
And another
that connects you in.
You can see it sometimes in your mind, and you actually draw it, and it might be like you see a building and you draw it down and it's identical.
Yeah, that's right. So you get it picture-wise?
Yes, picture-wise and sense-wise, and I'm actually there. It's like my physical body is actually there.
And it's a bit like mediumship in some respects. You get impressions, you get bits and pieces. You might get the coldness of the water if it's near water, or you might get the hardness of the rocks if it's by in a mountain range or something. You get it, or you get it in bits and pieces, and then you suddenly know it. And that's how it works. And Valerie's saying here, has remote viewing been used to go to other dimensions?
Well, I feel we certainly can go to other dimensions. There are other dimensions, and it's for example, I've had a lady that came to me and she said she had travelled to another dimension, and what she described was absolutely mind-blowing, that she actually saw forms of people, and it was like they were made up of light, the outline of their body. And it was a beautiful place, because I feel that the spirit world's in different dimensions and everything, because people seem to think, oh, it's aliens, but there's other dimensions.
When you think about it, the spirit world is another dimension, really, isn't it? I mean, the spirit world's another dimension. But I know in the Stanford experiments, towards the end, they started experimenting with things like what is on Mars, for example. So they're trying to remote view Mars, or try to remote view where the inside the pyramids and things, and they were remote viewing where is the Ark of the Covenant and things like this, and where is Noah's Ark and things like that. So they people started saying, it's starting to get a bit too wacky, a bit too mystical now. But I think there was some interesting stuff that they picked up, and who knows? I mean, I don't know if all the documents have been released yet, but they were top secret, these documents, and now I think they're gradually being released. So we might find some more stuff in the days to come, hopefully.
John, can't you remote viewing by giving locations, coordinations, not just and presenting time, but also the past and the future? Craig, is one for you to answer.
Can't you remote view by giving occasion coordinates, not just in present time, but also in the past and future? Yeah, that is kind of like I was talking about there, really. That we've got, multiple dimensions. They were looking in places like Mars and things. But could you also do it to the past? And I think that's probably quite an interesting idea. I never thought about it, actually, and I don't see why people couldn't look into the past in the same way.
I think that would come under, I would say that come under flashbacks, going back in time. That you could, because sometimes you can go into a building, and I don't know if it happens for you, but it happens to me, you get flashbacks, and it might be you go into a building and think, King John came through this building, you're suddenly sensing that, and you're actually visualising and seeing pictures.
Yeah, and quite often people get the idea of, like, they see the replay of history.
Yes.
I mean, we've talked about today remote viewing, but all of it is all much the same. Past, present, future, seeing ahead of things, seeing through time. All of these things are kind of all interconnected in one way. or another, you know. So it's all much the same. It's all, like I said, perhaps it's a bit like the idea of a network, a mycelium, like a mushroom has, you know, with a
mycelium,
net
it runs
of
through
connections.
like consciousness, doesn't it, all
'cause
through the planet.
Could not our minds, our souls all be somehow connected? And what happens in one place also happens in another place. I mean, these things are all in quantum theory. You know, something that happens here could equally, if you know, you can do something to an atom here, and on the other side of the universe, something happens. It's all interconnected, and I think consciousness weaves its way through all this world of things.
It's a very interesting question. Anita's saying, do police departments use remote viewing to locate children or missing people? I haven't heard of the police doing that so far.
The one I looked up, actually, there was one called Patty Hearst, was kidnapped. And
that's a Hens thing, robbing a bank, and she was a
That's
heiress,
it.
wasn't she?
Yeah. Was that, you got it. And all that business, they used remote viewers to try to track her down, and they found out where the car was, and there was all sorts of stuff went on there. I don't know the full story, but I thought it was an interesting one that probably worth looking into, do perhaps a whole show on something like that, of what police cases, you know. But yeah, I suppose it can be.
But you see, if you're doing police work, that is putting pressure on the psychic, the remote reviewer, or the medium, and it's like you've got to perform, but you can't do that. It's got to be done naturally.
Yeah, I think those guys that were doing like the looking for silos in Russia, they're doing it every day, every week. They're going to be focused and tuned into that. But, you know, when we're doing, because it's all psychic really, isn't it? And when we do psychic stuff, you've got to be in the right zone, as it were. You've got to be in the right frame of mind. You've got to be, it's not always easy. It's not as easy as people think. I think people sometimes think that psychic people are somehow superhuman, but sometimes we just get bits and pieces. Sometimes we get an impression, and sometimes we see the whole lot. You know, it's very variable.
Yeah, but you have to, being a medium or clairvoyant, you've got to rest your persona at times.
Was there really an MK Ultra program? Did Mengele go to the US to work on it? Now, I don't know about Mengele going to the US. I have no knowledge of that. I think he died, didn't he? Did they get Mengele? I can't remember. They got him and tried him, didn't they?
I'm sure they did.
So I don't think he would have done. But the MK Ultra program was a really twisted sort of load of experiments that were being done on the American troops. And it was the CIA were giving them LSD particularly, just to see what the effects were. So they were thinking that could we use LSD as a weapon? You know, a spiritual thing potentially, and used as a weapon. I mean, what's incredible that they could even consider it.
Didn't they use that on the American soldiers?
Yeah, they used it on the American soldiers. Well, they're thinking, could we spray it over over Russian troops and send them all crazy and things like that. But the funny thing is, it backfired because it was the LSD from that project that actually got into the mainstream, and people like Timothy Leary got hold of it. It was through the CIA. They funded the hippie movement.
Yeah. Marilyn Plant says, can you remote view over to other galaxies and other worlds?
Well, in theory,
yes.
But how do we prove it?
That's right.
That's the thing, you see. It's like with everything psychic and mediumistic, it's
Evidence.
all very well as long as you can verify it.
That's right.
You've got to be able to prove something. So until it's proven, it could be fantasy. And that's why often the stuff that comes through when people sort of come up with grandiose things that they're seeing on the other side of the worlds and about the Loch Ness monsters and things like this, I think, well, hey, just a minute, we have to be able to prove that. And unless it's provable, then who knows that's psychic, and it's not just, you know, you might be partly psychic and you might be very well meaning with it, but, you know, it kind of goes off a bit too far. I do find that sometimes with Dolores Cannon's work. She tends to go that way. She might be psychic on some things, but it tends to go too far. And I think, well, we got to prove it. Same with Madame Blavatsky. Some of her stuff, you often look at it and think, did she get carried away with fantasy? So if we could prove it, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm trying to do my watch, Craig.
You do your watch, Jane. I'll read the thing. So, Kit, hi, Kit, again. Nice to see you. I know you've come in as a patron, and don't forget, you guys, if you want to become a patron, have a look in the comments below, in the description below, because it's the patrons that make all this happen. All this has been funded by
This is quite
patrons, and it
interesting.
helps us to make the show happen.
Kit says, does your talents get stronger when in company with other mediums or psychics in the room? It depends on the psychic or the medium, I would have thought. Doesn't mean because you've got a room full of psychics and mediums, the power is heightened, does it?
Well, I would say yes, it does get increased.
Depends who the medium.
Depends who you're with. I mean, if you've got, I've run circles for many years, and when you sit down and you get everybody, particularly when you get along the stages of a few years of sitting and you start to get the energy built, the sum of the power is greater than the sum of, the total is greater than the sum of the parts, i.e. we amplify each other's powers. And you don't even have to have fully psychic people, you just have people that are spiritually open. And the power can be astronomical if you get a group of really genuinely attuned people. But then at the same time, you only need one in that group. If you get one awkward one in the group, for example, one that's all on an ego trip and things, it destroys the whole thing and the energy can get wasted just like that if you've got someone on an ego trip. So if you've got a group of psychics that are working in harmony together with good spiritual intent, it does definitely get stronger, Kit, yeah. So if you want to develop your psychic gifts, particularly, it's good to have a group. It's good to have a circle. I explain all that in my book, Psychic School, if you want to go and have a look at that one. I show how a group of people getting together can develop their energies and how you don't necessarily even have to have a medium with you. You can all be fledglings working together.
Right. Apple. Since everything is changing so much and quickly, do you think science will also take a giant leap and open up to spirituality? I don't think science will always will accept things, do you? Because, you know, once again, I don't think science is that much particularly advanced, do you, at the moment?
I think science one day will open up to it.
They're not advanced at the moment, though,
It's
Craig.
just they're all stuck. They're stuck in their dogma.
Yes.
You know, everything of this is pseudoscience. It's all
Yeah, they're
nonsense.
not meant to
you know,
believe in
and you throw it all out. No matter, even though you got, I talked about all that stuff at Stanford and loads of other stuff that's been done. All the work from the Society of Psychical Research back in the Victorian times. All that stuff. Huge body of evidence, and all the stuff with near-death experiences. Sooner or later, you know, science will look at it, and actually there's a lot of scientists out there that are genuinely interested in what people like us do.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at things like, and I don't want to go off on quantum theory and things, but there's a whole lot of things, for example, in subatomic physics, that is very much correspondent to the idea that there needs to be a bit of consciousness involved in this. Already, consciousness has to be put into the equation. You know, the viewer, the thing changes depending upon who's looking at it. So those type of things mean that consciousness has to be involved. And I think once science starts to take a bit more seriously the idea that consciousness is not just a byproduct of the brain, but can, just like with remote viewing, spread outside and move away from the body to another location, if they can accept that, then I think science one day will come round. And science and spirituality should work hand in hand. It did with the ancient Greeks and others.
That's a nice name, isn't it? Gillian Dassufur. Did any clairvoyant ever give accurate information on Madeleine McCann? Well, we really don't know that, do we? Because we haven't done a research on that.
No, it's hard to give a
and
confirmation
you can't
of
give
it.
false hope to those parents on Madeleine, because it wouldn't be fair.
It's a difficult one. I know that the Nadis. I know someone that looked at found the Nadis for Madeleine McCann.
Yeah, what did they say?
And it said it gave a load of information. They sent it to Madeleine McCann's investigation team.
Yeah.
I don't think it ever got to the parents.
Yeah.
And it did say various things that were then confirmed on the news, apparently. I'm saying this is second hand because I don't know directly the thing, but there was lots of information there. And they said, well, we saw all happening on the news just as the Nadi said. At that point, when that Nadi was consulted, she was still alive. Whether she's still alive now or not, I don't know. And the Nadi, I don't know, they would have to find another Nadi for her. Probably there might be a second Nadi out there. But I know they did search that. I know one or two mediums tried to sort of say that she's dead or that she's alive. I mean, you can't, to be honest, if you were saying that as a medium, you can't really win, because if you say she's dead, then you're cruel. If you say she's alive, they could argue that you're giving false hope. You know, it's a difficult one. It's a hard one, because, you know, unless you can actually pinpoint where she is or where the body is, you know, and again, maybe a psychic person could find her, but I don't know. I think there's been so much energy thrown all over that. And I know the police have had so many thousands of letters sent by well-meaning psychics that they feel has just kind of distracted from the investigation, because they've had to follow these leads that are all dead leads. So I think they'd be reluctant.
One day peace will come for those parents. It's awful for anyone to lose a child. And I can't imagine what they've gone through.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a good, and they were even accused by the
Wicked.
By the papers of saying, oh, they're complicit in it and everything. I mean, how awful. I mean, I think very brave of them to kept it in the public eye, so we're even now still talking about it, you know. And I hope there a good result comes from that one day.
Agility Bit says, Craig, if you could look into the past, you could solve all sorts of mysteries, such as who murdered the princes in the tower. We actually been in that Tower of London where the princes got murdered, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, I was in the tower, wasn't it, where they were murdered? I know, or something under. There was a lot of mysteries around that, where the bodies were hidden under the stairs and things like that. I don't remember the full details of it, but I don't see why we can't. You know, I mean, if people can see into the future, why can't we also see into the past? I mean, I've done some work before, haven't we, with museum curators, and done work with archaeologists and things. And in fact, Troy was found partly through the idea of dowsing. I've forgotten the name of the man that found Troy now. But when he consulted dowsers to find Troy and various psychics, and they reckon that information that was given did help to find Troy. The fact that there was multiple levels of Troy too was all part of that. And Carter also, I think, employed psychics at some point, I believe, when they were opening up the pyramids. So as archaeologists are quite interested in the idea that, you know, you can perhaps read an environment and sense the vibrations of what happened there once before.
You were given an ancient that stone, weren't you?
That was that archaeologist from France that gave me that.
Yeah, that was Eduardo that gave you that.
And it was Eduardo's friend.
Yes.
Eduardo's friend was an archaeologist.
Yeah,
he gave me that, and I gave a reading on it, and he was amazed because it was accurate. It was accurate to exactly where it was found and how it was found and
so
what I thought it was all about. Yeah, so it can be used. That's what I say. We've worked with archaeologists before. I find it fascinating.
And police. I've worked with police.
Fascinating to do those things.
Right. Here he comes.
Get the name right, Jane.
Thomas, I suppose it means.
Tomasz Baginski.
Baginski. It sounds Polish, doesn't it?
It could be
What is
Czech.
the easiest and most practical way to learn remote viewing? I think you've said it, and you've answered that question by practicing. And it might be good I would suggest that you had a friend that went in a different room and get that friend to do a drawing that you can't see how they're drawing it, turn it over, and then ask that friend to remote review what they see in their mind.
I did an experiment with it at my circle, and what I told everybody in the circle was to bring a picture of a place that they wanted as their target place, and also to bring the map reference, right, which is such as longitude, latitude, right? And I don't know what's latitude and longitude, and none of us in the circle would know what latitudes and longitudes were for things. And they would just give them the latitude and longitude, and the picture would be inside the envelope. And then we'd have to remote view where we thought, describe what we were seeing. And we weren't just choosing obvious places like the Eiffel Tower and things. We were choosing obscure places on the Earth. And we were getting some really top-notch results. So places like, for example, where we knew, you know, give a map reference for a solicitor's office, I remember, in Southampton. We had one of them, and we described it with the solicitors and everything like that. So it's really, so that's how I would do it. I mean, most psychic gifts are hard to develop on your own. You do need a group, you do need a circle. But it's a good experiment to try at a circle, to set something like that up. And I also did some more with it, and I hid objects around places. So I'd go up to Farley Mount and hide something there and say, okay, it's at Farley Mount. What have I hidden there, and what can you see? Or where is it? And we'd hide objects. And that kind of like the idea of hiding almost gives more energy to it. And I'd ask people to write their dreams down before they come to the circle in case there's anything in their dreams. And then when we do our tuning in and our meditation, we would then see what people picked up of what the target object was. So great fun. We'll have to try that when we set the seance room up, Jane. That might be fun to do with you guys.
Can more than one person remote view the same place and collectively all be there at the same time? Was there any evidence of this, even stating that there are others remote viewers around that particular place?
Well, you look at me again.
I'm remote viewing you, Craig.
I would say we did some experiments again in the circle where following on from that, and I would get the circle members to say, right, tonight we're all going to meet at a certain point in our dreams, and each night we'll try to meet at, say, Stonehenge, or I said Farley Mount, which is another sort of little mystical sort of place near here. And I said we'll try to, and in those dreams, try to show the other person something, something like an object or something that could give them a clue to what it was. So I imagined always taking a pink teddy bear with me, right? So people would say, oh, I saw a teddy bear, pink teddy bear. Does that make some sense? And if it came up in your dreams, we found that was another way. This is more like astral travel, but I suppose it's all kind of, like I say, all these things are kind of interconnected, really. So I think that was another way. You can do little interesting experiments, and I think the more you practice, the more you try, the more you play with these things. Like I say, the more you focus, the more energy comes to it, the more it grows in strength, and the more your intuitive abilities for these things grow.
Right, Island says, have you personally tried remote viewing to locate people or to see what the future for the royal family, or remote view Princess Diana's final day?
Well, I suppose when they took us to Paris on when we did the Spirit of Diana, I suppose in a way that's kind of remote viewing the past, because the idea there was they take us to each of the locations, like Dodie's flat we went to the Ritz, we went to where she bought the jewellery, where they bought the ring, and they took us to all the key places in Paris and London that were connected where Diana and Dodie spent their last days, and that got us kind of attuned before we did the seances, in the final seances with, where we communicated with Diana's spirit. I mean, they loved it to do it that way for the TV, because you got all the beautiful scenes of Paris, all the interesting scenes of London and things.
And I must come in there, Craig, because these were actual people that actually worked with her and knew her and could personally evaluate that.
Yeah, that's what you're saying about the actual people that sat in the circle. Were people that they had chosen who we didn't know who they were moments before, and we didn't even know who they were the minute they sat down. They could have been, even fake one Jane was given. But we did before that be taken to these different locations. So, and I suppose in a way, to answer your question, Ireland, that's kind of what we were doing, really. We were trying to see back to that point in the past. Really, I suppose, using our clairvoyance at that stage. And then eventually when we go to the circle, then that would be using our mediumship. But like I say, all these things, we give them words like remote viewing, mediumship, psychic. Actually, they all blend into one sort of form of higher consciousness of some sort, I suppose you could call it, and that's really what it's all about. So yeah, we could, we did get some interesting insights. Don't forget, keep putting your questions up, guys, because we're always looking for your questions, and we've got a few more coming up, I see. Do you want me to read it, Jane?
Yes, please.
Relar is saying, if ley line did not exist, can you contact higher powers?
What does that mean?
Ley lines, I suppose, saying that if there's no such thing as ley lines, could you contact higher powers? Ley lines are just like, I understand them as focuses of energy.
Usually ley lines are you always find a church near ley lines.
Yeah, because the churches were built on the old ancient sites. So they built the churches over the old pagan sites. And they used to think that maybe those ancient pagan sites were built on places of very high spiritual energy, so that they were sort of like almost like acupuncture points on the Earth's surface. And lots of places you still go to in India, like Mount Meru and Kailash and here Stonehenge down the road here from us.
You don't necessarily need ley lines to reach a higher consciousness or to go in higher powers, to go to descending masters and higher.
You don't. No, exactly. You don't. I don't think you do need them. But I mean, they're there, and they are useful places. They're power spots that people could use energetically. And we're right on a ley line here. We're on a very powerful ley line because that direction
Winchester
is
Cathedral.
That direction's Winchester Cathedral.
There's a church
and that
there.
direction's is St Catherine's Hill, and then Winchester Cathedral lines up with Stonehenge. So we're right actually where we're sat, right in a ley line, one of the biggest ley lines in the UK. So that gives this place a nice extra spiritual boost and energy, I think. But it's not essential. Spiritual energies exist everywhere.
Right, you'd like to read that?
Yes, you don't want to read it, Jane? You've got
Well,
to read
it's for you.
So I'll read
name.
the first name, you read the second one, all right?
Right.
So Victor...
Not Maldew, not Peter Maldew.
No, Muscella, okay. How common is telepathy, Craig? I think I have this ability since I turned 44. Thanks, Doc, thanks, Doc, thanks, Doc. Okay, right.
Testing you.
Well, I think everybody's got a bit of telepathy, really. I mean, I don't saying everybody could be a medium. I think you're born with that, and I think some people are born with sort of more powerful ESP than others, I think. Would you agree, Jane?
Well, animals have extra sensory perceptions, don't they, as they tune into us?
Yeah.
It's a natural thing.
And I think most people, I think, at some point, Victor, have had a kind of a telepathic experience. And maybe when you got to 44, you just got to the point where it was a turning point for you. Maybe at that point you thought to yourself, actually, I really do believe these things. I've been all my life maybe wondering whether they exist or not, and I'm starting to get these things. And maybe you're just at the right point in your life at that point to open up to the idea that we can, all of us, do a certain amount of telepathy. I think telepathy is quite a common gift. Mediumship, which is like telepathy with the spirit world, I think that is a very, very rare gift. Very rare gift. And I think some of the other things, the gifts of spirit that James has talked about and I've talked about here, sometimes some people have some of them, some have more of them. I don't think many people have all the gifts of spirit. And I think there's a sort of, I think everybody has a bit. And the highest levels of these, in India they were called the city powers. The idea of being able to be in two places at the same time by location is one of the city powers. Being omnipresent, being able to materialize things, being able to move objects, but also to make things happen. The power to make events happen, to make people come into your life. The power to make to draw things to you or not. These come depending on the height of the person's spiritual development, and they come naturally if a person follows the path towards full awakening. These are jewels on the path, but they're not the final goal. The Patanjali tells us this in the Yoga Sutras. So, but telepathy is one of the lowest city powers, which all of us have, and it's a good starting point to other things. Like I say, communication with the spirit world is ultimately telepathy. So there you go.
John, talking about remote viewing other worlds, Ingo Swann wrote a book called, I can't read that,
called Penetration. That sounds a good book, Jane. That sounds a good book. Which talked in part about Ingo's remote viewing the moon and unusual features and occupants of the moon. Oh, was it the moon? I thought it was Mars, actually, John.
I thought it was Mars because I tell you, Sharavana always says that we all started from Mars, doesn't he?
And actually, when you say that, you see, once John starts talking about occupants of the moon and things like that, and I'm not sure I'm right or not of that because I'm not sure about that, John. That's when you start to think, now the guy's gone too far with it. You see, I think sometimes this is what happens with so many psychic things. You get the right evidence and then people get a little bit carried away with fantasy and they go a little bit too far. You know, you see it on a lot of the ghost hunting programs. You start off with something that is a genuine connection, and next thing you know, you're off channeling monkeys and all the rest of the nonsense that's been shown on telly. Did he go too far? I don't know. I haven't read his book. I've seen some stuff by him and read some stuff by him. I've not researched him in great depth. I'd rather sort of focus on developing the abilities myself, really. But I think I do worry sometimes about what people say, because obviously, as far as I'm aware, there's no little men living in the moon. But, you know, maybe there was in the past, and maybe there is something there. Who knows? Like a 2001 type of idea. But yeah, so interesting comment. And I think that makes us remember always, with this type of thing, keep your feet on the ground, keep your common sense, and don't say think things that go against your reason.
Now, this is one definitely for you.
Okay, you going to read it?
No, you are.
I haven't got my glasses. Hi, Craig. How you met Jane. We would like to hear your love story. You two are an amazing couple. You two love each other. Love you too.
Now, I like that attitude for that factory.
I think that would be one for another day to tell the whole story.
Yeah, we will do that another day.
Shall we do that one next week?
Next week.
Yeah, because we haven't done. Have we done that one before?
No, we haven't.
Oh, that would be. No, we'll
And
do that as a special for you next
perhaps
week.
you can bring the.
Unless something special comes up in the news that we do, but
yeah,
we can
well,
certainly do it.
I like that one.
Yeah.
And then we can bring the wedding photographs and the famous people that were there with us.
Okay, if you like. All right, we'll get some. We can have Domenico do some extra work in the background, popping up photographs.
Now, Fleming says, does the psychic ability change with the age? Well, as far as I know, people are born with psychic abilities, but saying that, a child going through puberty who suddenly develops from the age it's known with boys and girls, the age of 13 for some reason. Happened to Sai Baba, happened to Swami, happened to Sharavana at the age of 13.
Yeah, I think there might be certain points in all our lives where there's a sudden quickening of the psychic powers. I mean, I think Jane and myself would both say we were born with it, and then certain points came that were real trigger points where it came on fast. And I think when I first started out doing mediumship, I had astonishing energy to be able to do mediumship all the time in spiritualists, 3 times a week in spiritualist churches, for example, which was exhausting work, and travelling all over the country to do it. So incredible stamina with it. I find now that actually, to be honest, if I do a lot of mediumship, I flag now. I get very tired after doing real full-on mediumship evidential.
Yeah. And
so I'm more skilled now, but perhaps
But can I say, if
not
you
the
do
energy.
a theatre and you've got hundreds of people there, it takes you 2 days to recover, because that energy, you've got to gain your energy again, haven't you? Because you're giving so
absolutely.
much.
And I think this could be almost a show in itself, talking about how hard it is actually being a medium, because there's things such as your energy levels, the possible health consequences of doing mediumship. You know, because everybody was, I'd love to be a medium, I want to be a psychic, but it takes a huge toll on your health. On your energy, and it can be exhausting on a level that is hard to explain to anybody that doesn't do it. It takes your chi energy. So that's why you need something as well, like you need to have, for me, I do a lot of yoga, and that helps me restore my energy.
With your prana energy.
The prana, it's important
with your
the
prana energy, Craig. Yeah, it does take a lot out of you, because you're giving. And you notice really very, very developed psychic people, they always remain young looking. In my case, Greg, and not in your case.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have one of these lovely little cakes
Restore
here. I think
your
they
energy,
look really
my
nice,
dear.
These little cakes here. Look at that nice little orange ones.
Yeah.
Just all ready for Halloween.
Yes, to match your scarf. I had you in mind.
Yeah. So.
Right, Agility Bits. Could you do some live experiments on the show, see if we can pick up what you've drawn? We will do that. We can't do it now because we've only got about 10 minutes left.
No, but I think we're going to be doing some more. I'm going to want to do, because we got another section we're building.
Yeah, we'll do that when we do the
and
seance.
We'll do round the table. So I want to do some round the table psychic teaching type of things, because a lot of people, you know, some of the basic things, and we can try some experiments between us. This is what the seance room part will be all
We're
about.
having a set built at the moment,
We're
aren't
building a
we?
little small set for that. So you can join us for that sort of circle, as it were, and we can try some things like remote viewing experiments and lots
And
of
perhaps
ideas.
a bit of psychokinesis, and perhaps we might have some more reports. You never know.
We'll do an all-night one.
Last question for tonight, Craig.
Yep. Last questions, guys. As I'm eating, you shouldn't eat on screen.
Oh, but it's so delicious.
Yeah. And don't forget, follow Jane on Instagram. And if you do really like this show, do please become a patron. Because, Jane and I give all our time, and we're putting a lot of work into it. This is our Saturday night, so we can't go out on a Saturday. We have to put a lot in. And if you can help us, if you can become a patron, it really does help. Even if it's just become a $3 patron, what's £2? A month is nothing, is it? But it helps the channel. Or if you can become a higher level patron, even better. And you can also, when you become a patron, every month I'll have a sort of a Zoom meeting which you can come and join in, which I do mediumship to the people. So you're getting free mediumship on the patrons. And also then, if you're not able to make that, you can even watch it. So, it's great. It's a place you can come, and there's a lovely community. You see people coming on here, people like Pat there, John there coming on. Loads of people you'll notice are patrons. We always give priority to patrons with your questions. And, if you help us with that, you help us to do this. But Jane and I have some big ideas, some big plans. I think the spirit world have big plans. The Nadis certainly do, to take this another stage, to take this so we got, not just this what we got, but a full spiritual centre where we can do bigger and better things all the time. But it takes you guys. If you give us a little bit on that Patreon site, it really helps. And thank you to those of you that have done that subscription. And to those that have given bigger subscriptions too. It's fantastic. If you're helping us, we can do incredible things,
Nanas says, got to put the glasses on. Some people reckon that Diana never did die. Do you actually see her in the coffin? Well, she definitely did die. And I did know what was put in her coffin, and it has been proven to me. But I don't want to give that secret away in case another psychic jumps on it and say they said it first.
Well, you can say it online, then you've got some proof and verification before others do it.
Do you think I ought to?
Yeah, no harm.
Mother Teresa's rosary beads are in there, and there's some photographs in there, and and where she's buried at Spencer's plot in the Spencer's, is it Althorpe? There's an island, and she definitely is there.
Yeah. So those things are not. There's nothing been said in press or anything about things like that.
Said.
Okay, so that's completely new then. Good. So that might be some verification for some time. Yeah, I definitely think I think she's up there on Mars with Elvis Presley with his in his Cadillac on Mars. You see, everybody comes up with these headline grabbing clickbait type of things that go on Facebook, and it all gets headline news. Diana's still alive. No, nonsense.
No, I think
people get carried away.
I think Diana in the spirit realm is really receiving children. She had a love of children because she was everybody's Queen of Hearts. Definitely bringing little ones that go over.
I'd imagine if I was Diana in the spirit world, first thing I want to do is get some privacy. Actually live an ordinary life.
Yeah, but she is doing good. Your work never stops.
Who knows? People on the spirit world.
Your work never stops.
You're spiritual. You don't rest when you go to the spirit world. You carry on with the progress. What is the most famous remote viewing with accurate evidence? I think the stuff that I was quoting earlier
You said
from Stansted, I want to. All that stuff from the American CIA, I think that's some of the most accurate.
And all the intelligence.
There's a lot of stuff in the Society of Psychical Research's files too, where there was research.
Well, they put a lot of money into the research for ESP and psychokinesis, and they put an awful lot of money, the CIA, And
I think it's the fact is it's been documented.
yes, it
you
has.
see. And if it's been documented, and it's been documented by scientists, I mean, all sorts of interesting stuff's been done, and people can say, oh, it's hearsay, or there's no way of proving it. You know what these skeptics are like. They look for the slightest thing to tear it to bits, you know. They're so dogmatically anti it. They're like the Inquisition. But I think there's lots out there. I don't think I could say any one specific thing, because I think with this type of stuff, the proof comes when you take the evidence as a whole. When you take all the evidence as a whole, or you take all the remote viewing cases, when you take all the near-death experience cases, when you take all of the stuff that's been done by mediumship, you look at the whole lot as the evidence as a whole, and if you were to present that in court, you would say, yes, of course these paranormal spiritual powers are true. I mean, there's all this evidence, you know.
Well, I think they're also releasing evidence of UFOs' existence, and they're only suddenly releasing them now from the 70s.
Yeah, that's a different type of evidence, that really, because that one is something you could give empirical evidence to. You've got a photograph of it, or you've got proof of it, or you've got the spaceship, you know. The type of thing we do with spiritual work is not as we call it, empirical. It's not so easy to pin down, because it's like the sort of evidence you give in a court of law rather than evidence you give in a laboratory. You know, it's a different type of way of approaching it. Looking forward to seeing the next chapter of your plans on YouTube. Exciting.
Yay!
Yes, and we hope to do a lot more. So, you know, if you keep subscribing, London bus found on Mars. Elvis was driving, absolutely. Yeah.
And Marilyn Monroe was sitting in the passenger seat.
Yeah. Thank you for being you and sharing information. Yeah, thank you for joining us, guys.
Yeah,
thank
it's
you
lovely.
for joining us. We're gonna John, another patron. Thank you, guys. Brilliant show. My favourite topic, along with past life regression. Best show on YouTube's by far. Oh, that's great of you to say that. You provide a truly wonderful service to many people. Thank you
That's
again.
sweet. That's lovely.
And I've also finished a new book today, which I should have mentioned, but we'll talk about that next week maybe. But there's a new one out there. It's just gone live on Amazon today.
Say it, Craig.
It's called
Happiness.
Be Happy, it's called, about Sharavana, my journeys to India, and about the whole concept of happiness.
And you can get it on
what is it?
Kindle and Amazon.
It's on Kindle at the moment. I'm waiting 72 hours before the next one becomes live on paperback. That'll be out there any moment. Should be live by now. Okay.
Perhaps I should bring my book out, Secrets of the Universe.
Sounds a good thing to be part of. With thanks, Craig and Jane.
Thank you,
Lottie. Thanks for joining us.
Lottie.
Thank you particularly our patrons like
thank you,
Jamie, who is a marvellous patron, one of them working on with us, helping to support all this. And thank you, lovely show. Thank you both, and thank you, Jamie, as being one of our patrons there. Marilyn's Planet. Can't wait till you get the seances on your YouTube channel. Thanks for sharing. That's go and have a look at that link in the description.
There'll be nothing like it you've ever seen, I can assure you.
It costs a lot, you know. We're having to build this
Yeah.
with volunteers helping us. It might not look that much, but it's a lot of work goes behind the scenes. Thank you for a great show. Have a lovely weekend, Jane and Craig.
Yeah, we will, Craig.
What's left of it? Yes, it's wonderful, Craig and Jane. Love and peace, everyone, says Lottie.
Oh, that's nice. Thank you, Lottie.
Apple saying thank you both for a very interesting evening. Have a nice Sunday.
Yes, we will.
I'm glad you liked the show. Thanks. Love when I catch you two live. Remember, Joe's a potato. Okay, I'll definitely try to remember that. I'll try to remember that. Thank you. Have a nice evening. Oh, Joe Biden he's talking, perhaps.
Oh, right. I didn't know.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. That's about it. I think we're coming to the end now.
Yes, and I think.
And hopefully they'll be able to see some clips of us on the theatre. And don't forget, we've got the theatre coming up soon, and you'll see the details in a moment.
She's talking about somewhere that gives me a name that sounds like Herbrook.
She's from Pembrokeshire.
Pembrokeshire. Okay. That's
And her name was Jean.
She's talking about a Peter. Something to do with fish and chips? Does that make sense?
Yeah. If I was still here, I'd clip him round the ear. Would you understand that? All right. Okay. I feel he's bringing you flowers from the spirit world, because I feel very much you sense him at times, because I'm getting out of breath as he's coming through. Would you understand that? Very breathless.
So the concordclub.com to get your tickets, and in the description below to get the new book and all the other information we talked about tonight, as well as become a patron. So we're going to say bye-bye now, Jane.
Yes, and I'm dying to meet you all.
See you all soon.
Bye.
Bye for now.
Would you like to know more about the paranormal world? Craig Hamilton Parker's books are now available on Amazon. Explore the future. Discover what happens after death. Unlock the secrets of your dreams. Learn to develop your own psychic skills.